Square Enix is getting rid of IO Interactive in what I'd like to term an episodic failure. Let's chat about it in the comments below, but first, my opinion. I'm Tarmack, and this is Feature Creep. Hitman 2016 was a funny title. Not funny in a ha-ha sort of way, but funny bizarre. Outside of Telltale Games, the episodic method of video game delivery hadn't really been tried by many others up until March of 2016, when Square Enix and IO Interactive decided to give it a shot with the newest beige-named Hitman game. In March, IO launched the first episode, which was the map Paris, designed around a fashion show taking place in an enormous mansion. Over the next 9 months, they would release an additional 7 episodes of varying length and size for a complete product that would officially launch in January of 2017. I reviewed it upon completion of the series, and despite it being an excellent game, I said that I can't recommend it on the basis that save states that involved any of the online components of the game were incompatible with the offline mode. It was effectively an always online DRM cordoned off section of the game which has no multiplayer of any kind. This is not something I approve of and could not support. Outside of my review, however, the game received reasonably positive ratings in the 70 to 90% range depending on which episode you were looking at and whether you were playing on PC or the consoles. On the topic at hand, Square Enix has announced through a shareholder filing a notice of booking of extraordinary loss. Quote, "The company has regrettably decided to withdraw from the business of IO Interactive AS, a wholly owned subsidiary and a Danish corporation as of March 31st, 2017. This decision has resulted in booking of the extraordinary loss amounting to 4,898 million yen, including disposition of the content production account related to the business and impairment loss of intangible assets in the financial results for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2017. End quote. Translated for the layperson, this says that IO Interactive has racked up, at current exchange rates, a loss of about 43 million US dollars, and as a result, Square Enix no longer wants to keep them. They are currently reaching out to investors to see if there is an appetite to buy the failing developer, likely for one hell of a bargain. The situation is sad precisely because Hitman Season 1, despite its episodic nature, is an amazing game. Once they fixed a bunch of the online-only requirement drivel, I think that it's safe to say that, so long as you remove your rose-colored glasses for blood money, it's probably the best Hitman game that has ever been released. The areas are enormous, actions you can take varied, with serious and ridiculous paths to success. The voiceover is great, music is great, graphics are great. The online optional functionality is awesome and keeps people coming back. So how in the bloody hell did they end up $43 million in the hole? The truth of the matter is that the most likely explanation is the episodic nature of the game. I'm going to break out here and talk about Telltale because a great deal of information can be gleaned from looking at the poster child for episodic content. People often look to Telltale Games as the barometer for success because of the Walking Dead series and The Wolf Among Us. They've been trusted with some major franchises, everything from Game of Thrones to Batman and now the Guardians of the Galaxy. Every time, the formula remains the same. The crusty old game engine they started with taking on ever-increasing graphical fidelity, but with a storytelling that remains essentially the same from product to product. The player is provided with a linear story arc with very heavy illusion of choice. Try to save a character in one of two ways, both of which fail. Make two competing difficult decisions that nobody references later on. Choose to save one of two characters, but the second character dies soon after anyways, meaning that both were intended to not make it further into the story. And this has somehow garnered vast praise from gamers for great storytelling. I loved the Walking Dead series, so I'm not intending to bash them for making bad games. I just don't think there's any magic here in player agency or storytelling amazement. What I find odd about using Telltale as the barometer for success is that they have known essentially nothing else. With a very small number of exceptions for games like their first title, Telltale Texas Hold'em, Puzzle Agent 2, and such, the vast majority of their games have all been episodic in some way. And because they grew into the industry with that design from the beginning, their corporate structure is designed around this expertise. Everyone expects Telltale episodic games, and as a result, the experiments to the contrary from them have never happened. In short, we have no idea how well a Telltale game such as The Walking Dead would have sold if it was done as a complete package on day one. The issue that Telltale will experience, but that we have no way to produce data for, is the same that early access and bought-in beta tests have on video game launches. It's called marketing fatigue. Marketing fatigue is the concept that because of the open nature of the internet, viral push of advertising online, people simply turn their brains off to it if they can. They can't cope with the amount of information coming their way, and as a result, we end up with the short attention span of the internet where an issue is incapable of being taken seriously for more than a week or two. Everybody has already moved on. Well, the same is true in video games. So many games are released on an ongoing basis, and so many marketing campaigns are competing for gamers' time. I can't keep up, and I say this as someone who has specifically aligned my own life to be able to follow this stuff. I've got RSS feeds, tracking Excel sheets, email subscriptions, and all manner of tools to be able to track what's going on in the game industry, and I can't keep up. Do you think average Joe gamer who just wants to play a few good games is going to do any better? As many early access games are now finding out when they go to do their official launch, nobody cares. You already had your chance, and it was months or years ago when you launched your early access title. People looked at it, bought in, or found it wanting, and they're not coming back. Not in normal launch day numbers like you might have hoped. You really only get one launch, so choose carefully. What Square Enix and IO Interactive did is choose, instead of having one big launch for their game, to put a bunch of caveats on Hitman. You could buy the full package if you wanted, or you could buy the games piecemeal. It was a bit more expensive if you went the piecemeal route overall, but you could buy into the first episode for just $15. They said to their customers, you'll get the next episode in a month or two. We'll have regular content, but you have to wait. And with the barrage of other games coming out, people didn't come back to the Hitman series in droves. Luckily, I do have some numbers to back up my claim. Let's take a look at The Walking Dead. 63% of players completed Episode 1. 53% of players completed Episode 2. 48% Episode 3. 43% Episode 4. And 40% Episode 5. You can actually see the drop just by scrolling down the achievements page of the game on Steam. Hitman is not so easily broken down, but there is a dramatic drop in the number of people who completed sections of the prologue and who completed any achievements from the rest of the game. To take that a step further, Steam Spy pegs Hitman at around 631,000 owners. That's total for the franchise in people's Steam accounts, which means it includes people who bought in at the $15 intro episode and never came back. This is abysmally low for a AAA product, and especially one that ultimately got really great reviews, especially as the episodes started coming out and being really good. It gets worse. On the PlayStation 4, VG Charts estimated Hitman 2016 at around 360,000 combined between retail and the PlayStation Store digitally, and 140,000 combined retail and digital for the Xbox One. Now, VG Charts is not great to use as exact numbers because they have a number of unknowns that go into each calculation, but the trend here is clear, especially when you consider a similar comparison being made to Hitman Absolution at around 4 million units combined between the PS3 and Xbox 360 and 3 million on PC via Steam Spy. It's clear that the new Hitman title is an abject failure. All of this when looking at the difference in sales between Absolution and the new episodic Hitman game, that being about 7 million sales for Absolution and around 1.1 million for the new Hitman title, sure puts some context onto that $43 million loss that Square Enix posted with their desire to put IO Interactive on the market to get rid of it, especially given that IO Interactive has been working on nothing else. And of course, it gets much worse when you consider that many of those 1.1 million who bought the new episodic Hitman probably only bought the first episode and never came back. Hitman 2016 very likely had a budget of around $60 million to produce, and has crushed a series that loads of gamers love because of a burning desire to provide gamers a platform service instead of a game. Combine that with Square Enix shifting the game from Square Enix Montreal to IO Interactive full-time midstream, and it's not hard to see why the choice to go episodic didn't work out so well. The Square Enix shareholder filing that talks about the desire to withdraw from IO Interactive business relationships included a phrase that I find highly dubious. Quote, "To maximize player satisfaction as well as market potential going forward, we are focusing our resources and energies on key franchises and studios." End quote. Player satisfaction indeed, and apparently Hitman's not a key franchise. To me, this whole situation is merely a deflection of blame. The filing has no detail on the actual cause of the loss, a decision that came from Square Enix in the first place as they refocused Square Enix Montreal and adjusted the workload of IO Interactive. And the worst part of it all, even considering that it's debatable when and if we'll ever see another Hitman game, are the careers of game developers for IO Interactive who put together what is in truth an excellent end product after all of the nonsense surrounding the episodic release, their careers being put in jeopardy because of publisher greed over a service delivery model that wasn't properly thought out. It's difficult to look to a developer like Telltale Games and try to extrapolate their model to other studios and other franchises. Like I mentioned, there has never been an experiment done by Telltale to see just how well one of their franchises would do if it was released as a complete package on day one instead of trying to maintain 4 or 5 much smaller launches. Despite being, as I referenced earlier, the poster child for episodic content, I have my doubts that it's actually more profitable for them to do it this way. However, because they've built their entire business on it, have dedicated fans who stick with them through thick and thin, and have aligned their own financing needs to match this model, they're doing okay. What you can't do, it appears, if Hitman and IO Interactive are any indication, is take an established development studio capable of and used to making complete game products and try to shoehorn them into a service delivery company. Are you the kind of person who comes back to episodic games to finish out the whole story? Or do you play a few here and there, not always bothering to get the complete edition? What are your views on video games as complete products on day one? Let's chat about it down in the comments. Feature Creep is the most fun video series I have and the one that I would stake my reputation on. If you find these videos useful and want to support Feature Creep being a YouTube ad-free game industry analysis show, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Link is in the description. You also get early access to the feedback loop videos and a super secret backer chat on Discord. Thanks for watching. That's all I have to say. Tarmack out.